Okay, so last week we were dealing with fractions to decimals, fractions to percents. Now we're gonna go backwards. We're gonna go from decimals to fractions. So what I'm going to be doing, first of all, let me write my number that I see here. So see 0.6. What if I was to write it without a decimal? Right? What if I was just to write it with a decimal? 0.6 is basically 6, right? Any zeros all the way to the left, I ignore. If my 0 was after the 6, then I would have written it as 60. But right now, I just write it as 6 over, because I'm writing this as a fraction, so over. Now, the bottom part of my fraction will have a 1 to begin with and some zeros. Okay, the amount of zeros, it is equivalent to the amount of decimal places. Okay, decimal places is basically how many numbers after the decimal point. In this case, I only see one number after the decimal point, so I only have 1 0. If I had two numbers after the decimal point, hint, look at question 17 and 18. If I had two decimal places, then I will have to use two zeros. So now here I just have 1 0. So 6 over 10. Now one thing we're going to do is we're going to simplify. If I type in 6 over 10, it's going to give it to me wrong. Now, what does simplify mean? I'm going to divide both numbers, the one from the top and the one from the bottom. I'm going to divide them by the same thing to make them smaller. I'm not going to deal with decimals, so it has to be a whole number. But once again, I'm going to divide the top and the bottom by the same thing. 6 and 10, they seem to be even, so I can divide them by 2. So let me divide top and bottom by 2. Because I had to divide them by the same thing. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 3 over 5 is equivalent, so that means it is the same thing as 6 over 10. The only thing is that it is simplified because my numbers are smaller. Then I ask myself, can I do any better? Can I divide 3 and 5 by a number to make them smaller? No, in this case, I cannot. So my answer is 3 over 5. The way you're going to be typing this, we type fractions already. The way you're going to type this will be 3 backslash 5, 3 over 5. Make sure you do simplify your fraction. If you type in 6 over 10, it will be incorrect because it is not simplified. All right, let's take a look at question number 16. To begin with, I'm going to write a 7. That's my numerator, the number on top of my fraction. And then my denominator has a 1 with some zeros. I ask myself how many decimal places, so how many numbers you see after the decimal point, that is how many zeros I'm going to have. In this case, I only see one decimal place, so only 1 0. So my answer is 7 over 10. Then I ask myself, can I simplify? 7 and 10, can I divide them by the same thing to make them smaller? In this case, no, I cannot simplify. So that's it. My answer is 7 over 10. Let's take a look at question number 17. I'm going to write 44 over 100. Now notice I did two zeros this time. The reason why, because there's two decimal places. Remember how many numbers after the decimal point. Okay, so here I can make this smaller. I see these are even, so I like evens because I can easily divide by 2. Now, I'm not going to say only evens can be simplified, because what if I had 3 over 9, right? They're not even, but I can divide each by 3. So in this case, let me divide each by 2. Like I said, I like evens because dividing by 2 is basically cutting it in half. So this gives me 22 over 50. Just because I simplified my numbers doesn't mean I'm completely done. Maybe I can simplify again. And I'm like, 22 and 50, I can divide them to make them smaller. Let me divide by 2. This gives me 11 over 25. All right, so now they're not even, so I cannot divide by 2, but probably I can divide by 3 Probably I can divide by 5. Probably I can divide by 7. In this case, I cannot, but I'd still do take a look. In this case, my answer is 11 over 25. Good. Let's take a look at our last question. Let's take a look at number 18. I'm gonna write 25 over. So now I'm gonna write a 1. And I ask myself, how many zeros? Is it 25 over 10? Is it 25 over 100? Is it 25 over 1,000? How many zeros? And that my amount of zeros, it is equivalent to the amount of decimal places. So how many numbers do you see after the decimal point? In this case, 2. So my fraction is 25 over 100. Let me simplify. I cannot divide by 2 because 25 is not an even number, but I feel I can divide them all by 5. So I know 25 can be divided by 5. 100 can be divided by 5. So let me divide by 5. I know 25 divided by 5 is 5. 100 divided by 5 is 20. Then I ask myself, can I do even better? Yep. Let me divide by 5 again. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 20 divided by 5 is 4. Now, that's as far as I can go. My fraction is 1 over 4. So I'm going to type this as 1 backslash 4. 1 over 4.